Texas reopens for work, many Texans have no work to go back to. What next for a state economy once considered the 10th biggest on the planet? In Harris County, millions in COVID aid set aside for undocumented residents. Is Judge Lina Hidalgo's progressive majority doing right by taxpayers? And in the nation's capital, the presumptive Democratic nominee facing a serious Me Too moment. Is a left-leaning national media looking the other way? I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, Charles Blain, founder of Urban Reform. Next up, longtime super neighborhood leader Tomaro Bell. In the 3 spot, legal analyst Carmen Roe. In the cleanup spot, writer, educator, and host of Latino Politics and News, Tony Diaz. And closing us out, legendary reporter turned media consultant Wayne Dolcefino. Let's begin. 30 million jobless claims. There's no sugarcoating that number. In the space of weeks, the unemployment rate in the world's most powerful economy has spiked above 20%. So as Texans are allowed to head to work from the COVID-19 shutdown, a rapidly expanding number will be searching for a rare slot on a new employer's payroll. In the Lone Star State, no industry has been ravaged more ferociously than the unrivaled breadwinner we call the Texas oil patch. Marshall Adkins of Raymond James is, in my estimation, the best energy analyst in the world's energy capital. His clear-eyed damage assessment is, in a word, brutal.
And so when you see a 25–30% reduction in oil demand in just 1 month, it totally corrupts the energy markets. And the problem is we can't shut down that much oil production overnight. And so the market is sending a price signal saying, you have to shut in this production. And I think we're going to end up shutting in probably 30%, maybe more, of U.S. oil supply. We're staring at at least a 75% reduction in oil service activity, which includes massive layoffs within the oil service infrastructure throughout Texas and other oil-producing regions. We could be going to 200 rigs in the next 3 months. We've never seen activity that low since John D. Rockefeller type era. So bottom line, this is really ugly. It's going to have profound consequences and lasting consequences on the energy industry for the next several years.
It's not just the hundreds of thousands of energy jobs on the chopping block. The cascading impact will hurt retailers, car dealerships, restaurants, hoteliers, providers of commercial office space, charitable organizations, and most of all, local and state governments, which draw a mountain of tax revenue from fossil fuels that will remain in the ground for months, if not years to come. Panel, it looks bad out there. Wayne, start us off. Oil patch is in big trouble.
Yeah, we got to remember too that the reality is oil is an international commodity. So while it's been great that the United States is becoming sort of energy independent, the reality is it's still international. And look, it speaks to why this city and why this county should have never done the draconian things they did with the coronavirus, because we have additional economic pressures that made those decisions even more problematic, because we're doubling the pain, because at the same time all this stuff's going to suffer because of the oil prices. We've closed them down for this virus thing, and we've made it twice as bad. Houston's going to be in so much trouble, folks. It's going to be very ugly, especially when it comes to raising taxes.
Tomaro Bell, you've lived through oil busts before. What's your read on what's facing us in the months and potentially years to come?
My concern is that this one will be more difficult to recover from than the one when I was in college. When it happened in college, by me being just getting out the gate, I didn't have the impact that others around me did. But for those who were settled, had their homes, had their jobs, it wiped them out. There were foreclosures all over the place. People were literally walking away from homes in Missouri City. Cars were being repossessed. It was bad. This will, I believe, be 3 times as worse because it's not just the oil, it's everybody. You're looking at people who had jobs for decades at sporting venues. That's gone. That's behind. You're looking at people who worked in clothing stores or had their own line of clothes or had their own businesses. That's gone because their clients might have worked in the industry and now their income is no longer there. So I have to agree with Wayne. This is going to have a domino effect for a long time in Houston. And I don't see our way out because it is an international, oil is an international commodity. The coronavirus might have did this with us, but I promise you, Saudi Arabia and Russia had a hell of a lot more to do with what happened in the oil patches than the coronavirus.
Yeah, I agree.
Carmen Roe, if you listen closely, you can hear the sound of house keys dropping in mailboxes in Midland, Odessa as people just walk away from their homes. As you read and hear the scope of the oil patch downturn, what's your reaction?
You know, I mean, I don't know. I know that this is going to be difficult for everybody. I know that oil is a huge commodity here in Texas, but we do a lot more with energy now than we ever did before. And so I don't think it's doom and despair necessarily. I think it's going to be difficult, but I think like everything else, we see this ever-changing situation. Yes, we've been here before and we got through it, but with all the money that's being put out there and all the people working together in a way that's much more unified than it ever was in the fractured environment where, like as Tomaro said when she was in college, I think we may see some different results, hopefully, and, you know, hope that this situation gets better. But yeah, if these people can't get to the table and start doing something for the oil industry, I mean, we're going to continue to see it go down. My sister works for a pipeline company. They got a bunch of money from the government, which has helped to sustain them and allowed them to continue to keep their employees and to keep working. And so if we keep working together in that regard, I think it's going to help for now, but big changes have to come long term.
Tony, you're always looking to elevate the Latino community economically, socially, but 20% unemployment, 30 million jobless claims already. You got to be worried.
No, and my heart goes out to all the families that are struggling right now, trying to make rent, car payments, trying to keep their standard of living. That's a real struggle. But I think we all saw this day coming. We probably feared it would be through global warming, but like the panel has alluded to, it's also the global epidemic. It's also global competition. Other nations have been trying to sabotage this industry for us for a long time. We need to be creative. I hope there's an upturn. We can't just gamble on that. We need to really diversify our economy even more. Tourism, education, technology. We've got some great schools here. Texas A&M, they've got a great engineering program. Zachary Center, they've got a wind tunnel. They should be making money the way the Valley is making money with launches of satellites and SpaceX. Rice University is developing the Ion Center. They need to be true to the community and come up with creative ways to use art and culture to make those industries. We need tourism. We need people to come to Houston, not because it's going to be a ghost town like Cleveland because the industry broke. They need to come here because we have cultural art in the Black community, Latino community. We got to stick together. We got to be smart, and that's how we're going to get through this. And we're going to get through this. It's going to be tough, but we're tough, we're smart, and we're strong.
Charles Blain, a hard number, 40 to 50% of the Houston economy can be traced to the energy sector. What's your take on the tough months to come?
Yeah, I think part of what I gleaned from what Tony said was that we need to be diversifying our local economy here so that we're not fully reliant on oil. And I agree with that. And I think Tomaro makes a good point as well. This is going to be significantly worse than what we've seen in the past. You're right. Houston is so reliant on oil and gas. But what we haven't seen in the past during these oil downturns was this double whammy of a complete shutdown due to a pandemic. And because of that shutdown, now we're seeing the projected city deficit somewhere between $200 and $300 million. There are going to be furloughs and layoffs because of that. So you have a whole sector of folks who were in a reliable job who may not be in a reliable job and be added to this unemployment realm now. And so that's going to be a significant problem as well. And so Then on the back end of that, you have the city now talking about levying a new tax on people for their garbage cans. And so people are struggling right now. You have a massive amount of unemployment, like you said, so many people tied to the oil and gas. And with this city and other cities struggling, they're looking to taxpayers to pay more, but now's not the time. And you're right. I think Tomaro makes, again, a great point that this is going to be significantly worse, I think, because of that double whammy.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Up next, we hear from Senator John Cornyn, who we ask, is there any way government can soften the blow? His answer when we come back. When the world is using 25 to 30 million fewer barrels of oil per day than it did just 2 months ago, the result is a mega glut of unwanted crude and a rapidly shrinking supply of places to put it. Senator John Cornyn says the federal government is trying to siphon off some of the oversupply, but the move is a Band-Aid at best.
There's really a double whammy. Part of it is just the lack of demand and the oversupply of oil from the world markets. And because people have shut down their economies, they're not using as much energy. There's just more than is necessary, and thus the price has gone way down. Secondly, the Saudis and the Russians got into a big fight and released a lot of surplus oil, which has driven the price down even more. And so finally, there was the president and his team negotiated an agreement to cut down 10 million barrels a day of excess production. But that still leaves us with about 20 to 25 million barrels a day excess supply. So what we've been looking for is maybe some additional storage for the oil through the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but really we need more than that. And I know the Secretary of Energy has been looking at other places where they might be able to find that storage. And then we need to, once we believe it's safe to do so, we need to create some economic activity and begin to grow our way out of this, because I think in the end, that's going to be the solution, is getting our economy back on track and getting the demand side in balance with the supply.
Just ahead, the progressive majority on Harris County Commissioner's Court votes to give emergency cash grants to undocumented residents contending with COVID-19. Our panel tackles the controversy after the break.
The bottom line is that it's not the role of county government to be picking winners and losers on who to tax the property taxpayers and give them the way to the favored population of choice du jour. Our PIC fund has roughly $300 million in it, which is to carry us through two disasters. That would be a hurricane and another disaster, or two hurricanes. At $30 million a session, it won't be long until we're flat out broke.
First, it was millions for taxpayer-funded legal aid for those facing deportation. And then this week, 15 million more Harris County dollars for cash grants to low-income residents, including those living in Harris County illegally. Progressive supporters of Commissioner Rodney Ellis's proposal say the COVID-19 relief is for those facing hardship, but who are ineligible for federal stimulus payments. Panel, good or bad use of tax dollars? I'm going to start with you, Wayne.
So look, in the list of stupid things our local government does, and the list is long, this is not as horrific as you might think I would suggest. But look, I don't believe we should spend tax money on people that use phony Social Security numbers, people who in many cases get paid cash and don't pay taxes on that cash and contribute to an underground economy that, if properly documented and taxed, we wouldn't have the financial problems we have today. How's that?
Tony Diaz, I know you want to rebut that. I ask you, look, folks are here without permission. Should we be giving them county dollars to help them through this hard time?
Let's make it clear. I applaud Commissioner Ellis for putting forth this bill, this policy that puts Harris County first, because I want to tell you how this is going to help citizens, U.S. citizens. And I'm glad that Harris County judges and commissioners are defying President Trump's attempt to scapegoat immigrants to cover up for the way he's mismanaged the COVID-19 crisis as well as immigration. This is going to affect U.S. citizens who are in mixed families. That means you fell in love with one of us, okay? So U.S. citizens fell in love with someone who might not be documented. They filed taxes because they're following the rules. They are getting taxation without representation. And I'm glad the Mexican Legal Defense Fund is suing the Trump administration for cutting out those American citizen families from getting the stimulus relief packages. And let's make something else clear. We're talking about families that are mixed because of this underground system that we've tolerated and Americans are benefiting from. And let's get something clear too. We're talking about people who are working in the grocery stores, at construction jobs, and we're talking about people paying rent. So if you are a citizen landowner who is renting to mixed families, which has US citizens in it, they are also going to benefit from this. And they're also going to our schools. Let's get something straight. The DeVos administration under Trump has cut out DACA students from student relief funds. Guess what? DACA students are here with permission, and they go to our schools. They have to go to our schools. They have to pay taxes. If they don't get the money to help our schools, all of our students suffer. So I am proud for our judges and commissioners to put Harris County first and help American citizens.
Tomaro Bell, Commissioner Cagle says the majority is picking winners and losers and doling out taxpayer money based on some bias. What's your take?
It's kind of hard for me to take a proposal at its face value when it's being presented by a commissioner who's under investigation for keeping millions of dollars of art off the tax roll so that we didn't collect taxes on it, then using taxpayer money to dress up, I don't want to say pimped out, but however you want to say it, a storage unit for broken equipment to store it in at the taxpayer expense. And now, all of a sudden, he's concerned about where taxpayer money go. Give me a break.
Charles Blain, is this a good use of taxpayer money in a crisis?
No, and to follow suit on what Tomaro's saying, this is a commissioner who's married to someone who on this panel uncovered how they're misusing taxpayer dollars in affordable housing. So you cannot sit here and preach to me about how we need to be all inclusive and help taxpayers and use tax funds to support illegal immigrants when you are not using, or when you're not properly using public funds. This is ridiculous. It's kind of like another boot on the neck of taxpayers in this county who are already struggling. Now we're paying for something for folks who don't live there. Who are not legal. And I understand Tony's argument that there are mixed families and things like that, but ultimately this should be going to folks who are citizens of this country. It's just hard stop there. That there should be nothing else around it. There are other resources to support other citizens, undocumented immigrants, and they can go to those resources. Why should I as a taxpayer be funding that? It makes no sense to me, especially during a time when everybody is hurting here in this county and across this country.
Carmen Roe, close us out here. You think this is the way we should be responding to this community, giving them cash grants?
Absolutely not. And I think the most important thing is that this isn't including illegal immigrants. It's targeted to illegal immigrants. And I have a problem with that when you think about, and people in your community who are business owners, who are here illegally, who didn't qualify for federal funding, who didn't get a stimulus check, who are left out in the cold. If we're going to give money, we need to start with those people. And if there's money left over, maybe we can get to the rest. But to start with and to allocate $15 million for people here who are here illegally and not any consideration at all for those people who don't qualify for other reasons, I think is short-sighted.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Up next, when all the smoke finally clears from this contagion, America will still have a president to choose in November. Houston's uber political analyst Mark Jones offers his generally on-target take when we come back. In the midst of this pandemic, a poll emerged this week which put Democrat Joe Biden slightly ahead of Donald J. Trump in the reliably red state of Texas. Could it be a natural reflection of the COVID-damaged economy, or perhaps a critical assessment of the president's leadership during this health crisis? Or maybe it's just a reflexive human desire for change. Any change during a time of terrible disruption. While November is a long way off, we asked our longtime go-to political analyst Mark Jones for a layout of the emerging electoral landscape.
Lina Hidalgo comes from the left. She's not a centrist Democrat, she's a progressive or left-wing Democrat, and she does have a desire to pursue and impose a more left-wing agenda. And I think she has seen the COVID-19 pandemic as a way for her to increase the role of government in Harris County, as well as increase government spending on the same level that, say, Republicans have seen as an opportunity to push back on abortion, as well as restrict immigration. So I think Lina Hidalgo is behaving like many Republicans in the sense that she's taking advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic to pursue or try to implement her broader agenda of increasing the role of government in Harris County and increasing Harris County spending across the board, but particularly in groups that support her. You know, Governor Abbott is essentially pursuing a middle track. He has extreme conservatives on one side who want to open up Texas like it was before yesterday, and then he has people further on the left like Lina Hidalgo who want to keep us in quarantine for months and months. I think what the governor is trying to do is strike a balance between keeping people safe and healthy but not destroying the Texas economy, and thus far he's getting high marks. A large majority of Texans approve of the job Governor Abbott is doing and support his efforts to date. Well, at the national level, a great deal will depend on what happens. Is the economy roaring back, or at least coming back as we hit October and November? And has President Trump successfully or unsuccessfully managed the coronavirus pandemic? If we're in a situation where the economy is still in the doldrums and people view President Trump's management as being subpar, then I think we're looking for a shellacking of Republicans and a widespread Democratic victory across the country in November. If, on the other hand, the economy begins to rebound in October or September and people largely give President Trump high marks on his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, then I think the president has a realistic prospect of re-election, or at least it's in the realm of consideration. And Republicans have a hope of holding on to the Senate. I think the U.S. House is going to remain in Democratic hands regardless of what occurs, with the only real question being what the size of the Democratic majority is. Small in the event that things get better quickly and President Trump is seen as having done a good job. Much larger if President Trump is seen as not having done a good job and the economy is still in a recession.
Still to come, the presumed Democratic nominee under fire for an alleged sexual assault. Is Joe Biden getting a free pass from women's groups and much of the national media? Our panel is set to dive in after the break.
It is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened, and it didn't.
Vice President Joe Biden has been publicly accused of sexually assaulting a female Senate aide some 27 years ago. Tara Reid made the allegation in March, and since then, a number of corroborating witnesses have added credence to the claim. Now, Friday, Biden went on national TV and denied the allegation. Meantime, much of the national media and prominent women's groups appear to be looking the other way, in stark contrast to the grilling endured by Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, a Trump nominee. Panel, what do we think of this? Carmen Roe, start us off.
You know, it's interesting. This reminds me of Bill Clinton. I mean, the statements that are being made on Friday are pretty all-inclusive. He says, I didn't engage in any misconduct. That's a broad statement that if it's found to be true that there was any misconduct in this case with these corroborating witnesses, I think he's going to be in a world of trouble. In the meantime, I think he's scoring a lot of points by saying he's going to be accountable where President Trump isn't and hasn't been held accountable. But I do think there's a lot of hypocrisy in all of this from the women's group and from a lot of people. And, you know, I know that there's this notion that it's like, we'll do anything to get Trump out of office, but, you know, be careful what you wish for and how far you're willing to go to get that result. And these women's group need to be behind this complainant and this victim in every way that they can until we get more information and go forward from there.
Wayne, is this proof of bias with the national media?
The national media bias, I can't believe you would make such a shocking allegation. Look, I'm going to offend a bunch of people, and I don't like to do that, okay? But I don't accept the theory that just because a woman says something, she has to be believed. Because men lie, women lie. So that aside, It's the Democrats' hypocrisy that I think should be stunning here, because they're the ones that go around when that doctor accused Kavanaugh of jumping on her 30 years ago when he was like in college, right? Everyone said it happened. It had to have happened because she said it happened, right? If that's going to be their standard, not mine, their standard, then they're stuck with it. What this lady says seems to be substantiated at the time by other people she told. If that's their standard, they ought to get this guy out now. I don't accept that standard, but that's the standard they claim because they care about women so much.
Okay, Tomaro Bell, can't wait to hear what you think of this. Should Biden be getting a more thorough grilling from the media?
I guess Wayne's comments really just stunned me, because here you had the lady come up who said that she was paid by Trump's attorney to shut up because she was a stripper, and he had called on a, I guess, according to her, he had 1-800-RENT-A-HOE on speed dial, and that she was just one of the many who came forth, and they didn't do nothing about it and didn't care about it. So I gather they're taking a lesson from the Republicans, because there was a row of women said, me, 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 me. And they said, no, 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 no. They didn't care. They just wanted no more Obama, nobody that liked Obama, looked like Obama, knew Obama, shook his hand, whatever. They were like, anybody will do. And now you see where we at. So I have to agree. Don't just say that it's true because she said it. You got to do your investigation and find out where this goes. So I don't believe that anybody gets a pass. I believe that you look into it and find out. But I dare Republicans, how dare you get up here and say they had him on tape saying what to do to women, and they still said, oh, but that's okay. Boys will be boys. His old ass ain't no boy.
Okay, Tony Diaz, does it make sense to thoroughly vet this in May versus September? Would give the Democrats some leeway if they had to make a change?
Well, all the reports that Biden was on Friday, he's engaging in this fully. And I think because he is, Republicans have no moral high ground. Donald Trump has not given any Republican any moral high ground, because Donald Trump has several non-disclosure agreements. Biden has 0 non-disclosure agreements. Additionally, if you look at the way Donald Trump has treated the women who alleged against him, he didn't give them a fair hearing. He would say ugly things like, look at her. Is she my type? That's disgusting for a president, for any man to say that for a woman who is alleging serious issues. The other terrible part too, if we're gonna go there, if Republicans want to go there, the allegation is that Biden grabbed this woman, and forgive me for being graphic, by the private parts, which he has denied. He said, look in the archives for those allegations. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is on tape saying that he would touch women by the private parts against their will. The president now has given Republicans no moral high ground. And yes, Biden is engaging in this fully. He's giving her a day in court. He's respectfully addressing it. We can't say the same of Donald Trump. And I think that's really the terrible part. If anyone killed the Me Too movement, it was at the Kavanaugh court proceedings, where they totally dismissed and trashed women's lives, and that's not the right way to approach this.
Charles Blain, about 30 seconds. What's your take on this?
I'm sorry, are you insinuating that saying some really terrible stuff in a bus is worse than actually doing something? I mean, that is crazy. Why are we talking about alleged sexual assault and talking about what about Donald Trump? This is alleged sexual assault. We should be focusing on this. Tara Reade made these allegations and told folks around the time that they happened. Christine Blasey Ford waited decades. And in terms of believability, the Democrats seem to really believe Christine Blasey Ford, but not want to give Tara Reade the time of day. I'm sorry, this isn't the court of public. This isn't the court of law. It's a court of public opinion. And if I had to pick one, I'd say Tara Reade's allegations seem a little more legit and substantiated. And so the fact that people are ignoring this simply because you want to get Trump out of office is really terrible. Remember what Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high? This is not going high by the Democrats. This is sinking very low. And the fact that no one wants to admit that is really crazy to me.
Okay, we're going to keep an eye on it. Still ahead, as Texas Governor Greg Abbott moves to reopen the state, he draws strong words of support from the leader of Houston's Methodist Hospital. Don't go away. Watch Your Point. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Throughout this pandemic, Dr. Mark Boom has been the face and the voice of Houston Methodist. As other leaders in our community criticized as premature the governor's plan for a phased-in reopening of the state, Boom stepped forward to say the numbers and the scientific models support Greg Abbott's call.
So as a community and as a hospital system, we saw the peak number of cases both getting admitted and being diagnosed probably around April 10th or 11th. So we're about 14, 15, 16, 17 days, depending on where that fell, probably past the peak. We seem to be at a plateau now. We're not seeing it continually decline day after day, but plateauing at a lower level. So, you know, the governor's plan, and he said it's data-driven and doctor-driven, and I applaud him for that. It is, I believe, a thoughtful, gradual plan. It has what I'd call gating, which means that we make some changes and then we pause and look at data and then decide whether the next set of changes, you know, should be made or can be made. And I think it's a thoughtful plan. None of us, of course, have a crystal ball. None of us have done this before, so we're all charting new territories. Yeah, it's unfortunately a cold, hard fact that COVID's going to be with us for quite some time. And when I say fact, I mean that's what we all believe, all of medical science believes, none of us, again, with a crystal ball. Whether it continues at a lower level through the next few months as we ease restrictions, whether it comes back strongly as we ease restrictions and we have to modulate restrictions, whether it goes away with seasonality and then comes back in the fall, no one who's being honest can tell you the exact answer to that. We just don't know. So we're going to need to do things together to be safe. We're going to have to be nimble. We're all going to have to be patient because life is not going to return quite to normal as we would have liked it to do so. As we begin to ease restrictions, return to more normal, there's much needed care out there for heart disease, for cancer, for people in pain with orthopedic disease, for gastrointestinal issues, kidney issues, etc., where people need to be able to come back to their physicians, get needed diagnostic testing, and get needed procedures. And we urge them to work with their doctors. We will make sure we do that safely.
Still ahead, COVID-19 is still claiming casualties, and not just as a direct result of the sickness. The suicide of an emergency physician in the thick of the fight demands a serious discussion of the heavy toll taken on our collective mental health. Welcome back. The father of Dr. Lorna Breen told the New York Times his daughter was both a hero and a victim of coronavirus. Breen directed the emergency department at New York Presbyterian Allen Hospital, which endured more than 50 COVID patient deaths. One of more than 9,000 frontline health workers who have contracted the virus, Dr. Lorna Breen last week took her own life. Her family said she had no history of mental illness. Panel, we can't begin to guess yet how many doctors, nurses, first responders, and for that matter, survivors of the lost will be driven to the brink. Tomaro Bell, let's talk about this important issue.
What people don't understand is that healthcare workers, what it takes inside of you to become a healthcare worker is a special gene. It's a special DNA to put yourself on the line to heal people. Wayne and myself, us being here to healthcare people who helped us when we needed them desperately. What people don't understand is to look at what do they need. This lady was over the ER at one of the most, deeply infected areas of the United States of America. She ended up getting it herself. She recovered and then had to go back onto the battlefield. And nobody ever thought about, is she ready? And can she do this? We all hear people talking about what the toll is when you go through this, but people have got to look at the mental impact that is putting on healthcare workers. Because I'm telling you, for them being put in a situation, for most of them that they've never been in before, because generally you all know when your family members die, it's people all around the bed. Everybody comes, they tell them, they get all your family here, they finna go. Now they're the ones who have to say bye to these people alone because the family's not there. That's a lot. That is a lot on them. People are not looking at that. That is an emotional toll, and especially when they see the family members going and they're not understanding why nobody is here with me. You have no idea what they're going to. They've got to do something about this.
Carmen Roe, can we expect collateral damage of the mental health type to be something we contend with for months and perhaps years to come?
There's no question. I mean, and this isn't just first responders, although obviously this is a tragic example that hopefully will get some focus on this issue. But mental health issues are complicated, they're misunderstood, and they can happen to anybody, particularly when we have something as serious as the coronavirus happening and people are so isolated. Depression and other types of mental health issues can come up even if you've never had any symptoms before, because the things that we're dealing with can be so difficult financially, health-wise, with people getting sick and dying around you. And so I hope that this is something that everybody can look at, call your friends, call your loved ones, stay in touch with them, and know that everybody needs to be reached out to during this difficult time. Most people are home by themselves. They have no support whatsoever, and those people are the ones that are most at risk. And certainly our first responders, if you know someone who's out there putting their life on the line, I mean, reach out to them early, do it often, and keep going even after we get back to business.
That's right. Charles, do you think the loss of this doctor was an anomaly?
No, I don't think so. And I think, sadly, we're going to see more effects, mental health effects out of this. I mean, you think about it, like Tomaro mentioned, when you die, they bring family around. But even when you break an arm or you get surgery, people come around you. And the weird thing about this disease is we're not allowed to have people around us. So it makes you very alone, very isolated. And then you look at some of these people who are not first responders, who, you know, maybe go to see therapists multiple times a week or multiple times a month, who cannot do that now and maybe don't feel comfortable televisiting, or lost their jobs and don't have insurance and can't get their mental health treatment. And then you go even further and you look at these communities that are that go undiagnosed or don't have mental health history and don't think that they have an issue. Now they're being isolated. And a lot of these communities are the same Black and brown communities that are being hit very hard by coronavirus. And so I think you have a lot of these effects that kind of just radiate out. And I think we're going to continue to see issues pertaining to mental health going forward because of this.
Wayne, is too much being made of this?
No, look, I don't want to be cruel and suggest that it's not something that the hospital she worked for should be cognizant of, okay? But the cops, firefighters, soldiers, frontline health workers who work in ERs, in ICUs, see people die every single day, right? They almost watch me die, okay? They see it every single day. I think it is rare that somebody killed themselves because of it. That doesn't mean that they don't have mental health issues, but to sort of say, well, then she killed herself, so people are going to start killing themselves all over the place, I just think is unfair, right? She obviously, for whatever else was going on with her, couldn't handle it anymore, but that was her job. It wasn't like she was some stranger on the street watching people keel over every 5 minutes. She worked in a darn ER. People die in ERs.
Got to stop you there, Wayne, but I want to give Tony 30 seconds.
Well, I think we need to watch to see what kind of generational upheaval we're under. If this continues, just think about it. Your typical family, school has been destabilized, work has been destabilized. They're not sure where the rent may come from. And there's even survivor's guilt, where some people who are not suffering as much may feel bad as well. We need to check on each other. And I think this is serious issues to look for and help each other heal through. So this is serious.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Still ahead, plenty of folks say we haven't done near enough to prevent a second wave of COVID from descending on our city. That argument from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee when we return. Too soon, too little testing, too many unanswered questions. That's what Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is warning about reopening our state and the nation.
What we're here today is not to be in a contentious disagreement, but only to speak facts, that we cannot move out of the guidelines, social distancing, testing, and 14 days of no cases that the President of the United States asked us to do by opening up our states precipitously without committing to massive testing. The Harvard study says that America should be doing 5 million tests a day. We may not be near 6 million total out of a country of over 300 million. There are 3 million cases of COVID-19 in the world, and the most powerful nation in the world represents a third of those cases. People are afraid. They are afraid to go back to work. They are afraid. Our first responders are, in fact, facing this every single day. I am not here to put hysteria. I am here to have preparedness over panic. Don't panic, but get prepared. You've got to be prepared to look at people and say that they are safe. You got to be prepared to say that your workplace is safe so that someone does not get COVID-19. But I am firm in my belief. We are not ready to open any states right now unless they prove to us that they have had 14 days with diminishing cases and they can say that they have made available testing for every one of those who needs a test, desires a test. Frankly, everyone in this country should be able to have access to a test.
Still ahead, the oil and gas capital of the world is going solar. A few thoughts on that development when we return. Welcome back. Oh, the times indeed, they are a-changin'. This week, the mayor of the world's energy capital announced the city of Houston has committed to 100% renewable electricity, specifically solar power for all municipal operations as part of the Houston Climate Action Plan. Clearly, the goal of protecting the environment is laudable and many would say essential. However, some might question the timing of this announcement. Like it or not, the fossil fuel industry has been the undisputed engine of the Bayou City economy for more than a century, delivering a gargantuan quantity of employment, revenue, innovation, and charitable giving. As the industry faces what may well be the most destructive downturn in its history, some may well view the city's decision to go solar as adding some insult to what is certain to be considerable injury. Just a thought. Stay where you are. Fox News Sunday with host Chris Wallace is just ahead. From all of us here at What's Your Point, have a healthy week.